Today I'm here with one of my main references. We're here with Christian Bromann. But for me, Christian is a visionary who is always very curious about everything technology related. And what I most admire about Christian is that you do that in a very humble way, always thinking about the community around it, the implication that has, setting the business value, and advocating for a standard so everyone can sit down and create together. For me, that's an outstanding aspect of you.
Those are very kind words. Yeah, I'm Christian, and I don't know. I grew up on the countryside with the curiosity about building websites, and eventually that has been spawned into learning about programming and learning about building software, and that eventually led me to study computer science. And there I needed some software, and I found it in the open source world, and that brought me to this whole another world of like, hey, I can contribute to a greater good, and I feel very interested about building software for free so other can use it for free, but getting paid for it. I think that's a very fantastic model. I know it doesn't work everywhere, but that's where I feel like at home. I think that's me.
For the people who do not know you enough, let us understand what have you created with that. Maybe we can start with your major start use case, which is WebdriverIO, that you actually reach a little of this dream that you're talking about, that is open source, being paid, helping others being paid for it.
Yeah. So when I started studying computer science, I got introduced to this whole like JavaScript ecosystem, and went to conferences like JSConf, and back then, like all these people that went on stages were like idols for me. It's like, oh my God, Eddie Osmani or Paul Irish, it's superstars, and they did a lot of open source stuff, and I got always inspired by that. And when I found WebdriverIO as like a class project in university, I saw that as a chance for me to be like, hey, I want to be like those guys and kind of like work in open source and be able to build something with a larger community. And I was fortunate enough that the project kind of like found its success and grew over time. I mean, I've been working on this now for almost 15 years. And very just recently, like last year, we've been able to get some funding for the project. I love to give back because, as someone who lives in San Francisco, already gets a lot of money for the work that I do. I feel like, with the intent of growing the developing community behind WebdriverIO, I feel like that's a good chance to not just put it in my own pocket, but give it back to everyone who just contributes to the project and to the idea.
Just so everyone can understand the dimension of what WebdriverIO has become within these 15 years, it has become part of OpenJS Foundation, which is already a big testament of how big that project is and how important that has become for not just users, for the industry. It is the tool where you can use in browser, but also mobile. And I'm not sure what the stats of the contributors are now. But do you give us more stats about the importance that this project has become?
We have about 300,000 downloads a day, which, give or take, that might not mean anything. But that has been growing over years and years constantly. We've been growing the development community on Discord and all the other outlets. I've seen now projects like the Electron plugin to WebdriverIO for people who want to test Electron application. That project is currently completely run by someone from the UK who's just interested in contributing to it. We have like the visual testing plugin that is run by someone from the Netherlands, who is very like Wim, who is very good in visual testing and all these aspects. And so I feel happy that I can start to kind of like navigate the people that come into the project and have interest and give them a task that and kind of like give them the experience that I always looked into getting, which is, be part of a project, learn from the challenges that the project brings, and, get something in return, which is, one, financial, but also like we want to invite people to events. We want to use our funds to run our own events. So all of that, and it's slow, but it starts to come into fruition.
And how do you see so in the past, probably in the last 1 or 2 years, mostly in 1 year, yeah, 1 or 2 years, we have lived a lot of changes in technology development. And especially you that's now in San Francisco, you're at the forefront of everything that comes up like a boom in the face, right into the first layer. How you both as a developer yourself and as a maintainer are dealing with those changes, and what are those changes influencing or affecting the most both your work as a developer and your work as a maintainer and your work as someone who has a project that has been dedicating so much time and so long for this project with the changes that is occurring now?
Yeah, I mean, even though I live apparently in the hub of AI, it took me a while to actually get my head wrapped around it, like to get more value other than just like, hey, I have a prompt that I can ask some questions to. Nowadays, like I'm fully relying on apps like Cursor or Anthropic's Sonnet and Cloud models to just be more effective as a developer. Um, I'm have the fortune to go to a lot of AI meetups that are here in the city, but I feel like there are tons of AI meetups around the world. Um, but in generally, I think it makes me as a developer just way more productive. I can just sometimes just enter a prompt and to a problem that I have, and I get the code, at least the start of a code, set up for me right away, and finish my task quicker. And that helps me kind of like to spread more out and be able to contribute to more and support more people that contribute to the project. And yeah, that's very exciting. And especially with the whole, browser automation, there's a whole spectrum in the AI world, which is like agents automating or controlling applications. Browser use is a term that probably some people will know, which is brought on the table from Anthropic, that allow you to just tell the LLM what it should do with your browser. And there's a bunch of projects that started to use automation technologies like WebdriverIO or Playwright to control the browser through an agent. And I've been building my own applications to that. And it's very exciting and very interesting where that can go to. Right now, I feel like agents are just not ready yet to actually take on complex tasks. So I believe the future for now will be a mixture out of like, I can use an agent to control the browser, but I also do the testing myself through like a record playback tool or like conventional like writing tests.
Interesting. In the vision that I had is that would be a little bit of the opposite, where you could create more. The tests would become more and more automated by AIs, and that would be my next question: how you are incorporating that in the roadmap of WebdriverIO?
So far, I've been working on a little secret project that will hopefully allow me to bring this in as a plugin for WebdriverIO, where people can, instead of writing automation commands, they can just write, hey, click on the button with the red background and the white text color, and then the AI agent will find out what to do and click on the button. There are other open source projects that are, the one that I'm working on is a little currently private and I'm not really able to talk about that too much, but there are other projects like Alumnium, which is from one of the maintainers of the Selenium project. And he currently builds this AI agent for Selenium, as a Selenium plugin that exactly does the same. And I think that could be a way to overcome some hurdles in automation. Again, I'm a little bit skeptical in terms of like speed and capabilities of those agents, because there's this challenge of how do you define the prompt that you want the agent to have the browser automate. If the prompt becomes too long and too complex, then we know the LLMs start to hallucinate and do things that it shouldn't do, and that becomes rather like unproductive than anything else. And then there's also like no chance that you ask the LLM a thing once and it does the thing all the time the same way. So it's not always true that you get the same results. But it's right now it's a perfect time to experiment with those kind of ideas and play around. And that's what I'm currently doing. That's what a lot of other people do. You see, like just this YC Combinator batch for spring 2025. That's the first time they have like a browser automation through agent category, its own category for just that kind of stuff, which just shows how many new companies and new ideas are evolving around that topic.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. Do you see, now that I see you're very excited about it, and now I want to push you to your European root side, where right now there's a whole law asking for people to step back and basically reflect or push technology development, especially in AI, with a little bit of ethics. Do you have any worries about it, or how do you reflect on that while you are creating those tools?
Good question. I don't have a good answer to that, like how ethics should be applied to these technologies. I see that the AI space in general is like a very hyped and competitive market, and it will be hard to convince people that are leading in this market to step back and be cautious about ethic principles when a lot of these people are driven by money and just want to get something, make a successful company. That's unfortunately the truth. And I feel a little bit concerned about that the European approach, might be ethically the right one, but will ultimately, fail because we might not, or Europe might not be able to catch up to the US developments and whatever happens in China that with DeepSeek and other models. So it will be, for me, I can just lean back and see what happens and, adjust to new realities. But it's hard to have any impact on those developments.
One thing that I think, and I wanted your take on that, is I heard that now in FOSDEM. I was in FOSDEM like 1 week ago, and I heard two concerns that I wanted to check in how that reflects on you. One is from maintainers that are really worried that open source will have less, they would be more disconnected from the involvement of the project because it required them to write less code. The other, what's going on in there for the open source core itself.
I mean, I'm curious what you think about this too. I feel like when in terms of being disconnected because you're not writing as much code anymore, I feel like open source projects are much more, it's usually just much more than just writing code, right? And code contributions. There's this whole community aspect of the project, getting people together, creating visions together. There's contributions that are outside of just code itself that are very useful and required for a project to be successful. So I'm not sure about too much, or I'm not worried about too much about AI helping people to. In fact, I would rather say like people that have less time spending like working in open source can now be more impactful because they have help to understand project complexity better. They can ask an LLM to be like, hey, can you explain what this, what the developer of this file, was intending to do? And if any, like it may even help to even increase contributions because now, often as a maintainer, you just build this huge project and you will forget over time how complex you have been building it. And you as a person have the most context to it, but others don't. And so how AI can maybe help to convey that context and make people aware of what's needed, how things should be implemented, and how a maintainer would expect contributions. So yeah, I think I'm not too worried about AI in terms of open source. Again, I just see it as an enabler rather than like a disruptor. What do you think?
That was actually the second question, and I have high hopes. I'm not sure if I think that, but I would say more an utopic wish. I have high hopes that open source can reflourish. Another thing that I've been hearing a lot is how much you need new blood in open source, because most of the people that were connected with the core values are becoming older people. And there's the people that are coming in. It's kind of a different perspective. And I hear a lot of that. We need more fresh people with other perspectives. And for me, I wish that to be a way to revamp open source in that magnitude that has become in the world, addressing an issue that is giving accessibility to people. And that was another conversation I had in FOSDEM. Like the problem is not the knowledge sort of available with the internet. The issue is the access to tools. Not everyone has $20 a month to pay in one tool, and we're often talking about more than one. So for me, my high hopes is that open source can equalize that and help everyone to equalize.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and in that sense, like AI platforms can help to kind of like provide, people that don't have the necessary tools to gain access to that. I totally agree with that, 100%. I feel like in general, like when I grew up in the tech world, when I was like started to university, open source was a new thing. Like back in the days, like I think I lived through the time where GitHub evolved and where pull requests became a thing. And so we kind of like, we lived in a world where open source became what open source is today. I feel like what open source is tomorrow could be completely different. And AI could have an impact here. Like if we see, there's developments around, contributing information to a certain page or service that allows LLMs to understand what the service does. Maybe that is a form of contributions that we see in open source in the future, like helping to enhance context for LLM, for LLM agents to understand and work with certain services. I think especially now, since there's so many large open source projects that will never be replaced by others. Like back in the days, there was just so many new things you can work on and build that haven't been built before. Like today, people try to reinvent Node.js or like a JavaScript runtime, but I think the original Node.js will never go away either. But there will be new opportunities to build ecosystems around open source, and I think AI will play a big part in that too.
How has been going on? You mentioned you have been trying out AI agents yourself. How has your journey going? And for me, the most important is the question is, how is your paradigm in your mind changing from being a developer, like a regular software developer, and becoming an AI agent?
It's interesting. I started to think much more about, okay, whatever I'm building, how can I provide context for an LLM to understand whatever that is what I'm building? And I built like a browser use agent myself as I was trying to, build similar things that, for instance, I mentioned Alumnium does. And it's interesting. Like it can be very effective, and it can be, simplify the way we generate and write tests. But there's still a lot of problems. Again, what I mentioned with hallucinating or not being always doing the same thing over and over again. And there's a part where, the slowness factor that is still makes using agent for automation not super efficient unless you find workarounds for those. But we don't know yet where this AI journey will go, how effective these models and these agents will become. Overall, I think it will definitely gives us options to help us reason about more things and find out the issues underlying problems much easier. And it's a good place to be in right now, because we are basically on a new green field. We can define what automation tests or testing means in general in the future. And that's what I'm working on, and we'll see where that journey goes.
Undeniably, there's a shift in the workplace market caused by exactly AI and those tools. And there's a lot of anxiety, and there's a lot of people seeing, oh, there's a possibility to have other professions. What would you say for someone that is starting the journey, or even like someone that is already a software engineer that is changing for this side?
I would advise to embrace the change because that's something I've been struggling at for myself. I could have worked on these agents things a year ago, but I'm also not always the first person that jumps on the first new thing. But it seems right now that this AI thing is kind of impactful. So whatever you do, try to embrace it. Try to have I always have a cloud app on my desktop opening. So whenever I don't know what to do next, I ask an LLM use these technologies. Try to incorporate these technologies as much as possible. Find the way it provides you value, and if you find a unique ways in which it provides you value, share it and become shared with the community and the people around you.
Is there anything else we didn't touch upon that you find important to mention or to comment, or any insights that you have living in the mecca of technology?
No, I don't like. I think there's so many things that change every day and new concepts and products and features being open. So whatever I say right now will be obsolete tomorrow. So I would just say for that.
Thank you so much, Christian, for taking the time to talk with us and sharing your knowledge and insights.
Thank you for having me.